Hey guys, welcome back to 4-Wheel Builds. And today, what we're going to be doing is working on the workshop, that workbench right there. So let's take a closer look. I bought this workbench. It's a welding workbench. So it's actually got a 5mm steel plate on top. It's all made out of steel piping and quite sturdy. It's very, very heavy. I picked it up, you could say, for cost of the scrap or even less. I wanted to buy the steel to go on the bench top. I actually wanted to build a wooden bench top with a steel top, but this came up. I thought it was a really good price, so I pulled the trigger and just bought it. But what I want to do today, guys, is get this modified a little bit. So it's got this sort of wonky, it's not wonky, but it's got this sort of shabby I guess support for a shelf. I actually want to get rid of this and potentially get two built. So divide up the height of this into three sections and build 1 and 2 shelves. So that's obviously will allow me to store things underneath the bench. And additionally, I want to build a bracket in here to hold this drawer cabinet. It's also metal, so I want to get some 20 by 20 steel, there you go, and put it right there, build a bracing for it so it fits in nice and snugly. And then once I've got it fitted, I'll lock it all in there, so I won't actually even be able to remove it without cutting all the bracing open. And there's some these odd bits and pieces which are welded to the bench, so I'll get rid of that. I'll clean it all up and get it prepared to then be painted. At the back, it's got this steel plating, so you can see how it's 5mm. It is sturdy as. It's got some surface rust, so that's got to be cleaned up. So I'll get a sander out as well and get that sanded. We'll see how long that's going to take me. I'm not a welder by trade, by the way, so I have welded a few times before. I'm just going to be using this small rod welder today, and hopefully I'll get this shelving and get this bracing first welded up, and then I'll start cleaning the whole thing up for it to be painted. Okay, so let's get going. Alright, it's been a bit of time to get that shelf support that was here, that chunky one. I was a little bit of a pain in the ass to get out because the welds were in difficult spots, so I got it out in the finally in the end. I'm grinding down all the posts. I got rid of all the welds, and I've decided actually I'm going to put that drawer cabinet on this side. It's just going to be more to the center of this whole workbench space, and I think it will just flow a little bit better. It will just be easier for me to get the tools out. All right, so next thing is now I'm going to start measuring up all the supports. A support post or support brace, a piece of metal essentially between these two posts, or right edge of the drawer cabinet will rest upon that, and then I can do some further support at the front here, and then I'll work out what I need to do in the rear, or even actually go from the top to the actual support brace here, just to stop the drawer cabinet from coming out if I pull on the drawers. Alright, so let's get the measuring tape out, start measuring things up, and let's get that angle iron cut up and start welding. Alright, so I've welded in the rear support bottom and the top. The welds are not beautiful, but they're solid, they're not going anywhere. So I'm just gonna sand these down and let's get painting. The welding is not the best of quality, but it is good enough, and you know, I've hit this with a hammer and I've done all sorts of things, and it's not coming off. Yes, my welding skills are not up to par as yet. Hopefully as time goes on that will improve. Okay, so I've sanded all the, I guess, legs or the support structure for the bench, which I'll be painting. I've also vacuumed to make sure all the rust and all the bits and pieces, all the sand and the dirt has come off. And now we'll get to painting. Alright, and the painting has been finished. And look at that, guys. Look how cool that looks. That grey really makes those red drawers really stand out. And our table is starting to look awesome. It's starting to look brand new, actually. Apart from that, obviously, the bench is still, well, the bench top actually still needs some work. Needs to be still cleaned up. I got some sort of higher grit sandpaper, so it's 80, I think 60 and a 40. I'll go through those and see if we can clean this up a little bit further. Just get rid of the, I don't want to make it beautiful and brand new. There's a lot of deep scratches, knacks, nicks, and there's a lot of history in this table. And what I want to do is just get rid of that rust. If you actually have a look. Yeah. So there's a lot of surface rust. It's not deep, it's just still very solid. But we'll get that cleaned, bench top cleaned up. But I'm loving this grey colour. It's really making the bench top pop. On that entire wall, we're going to put OSB boards, and this table then will butt up against that. And it's just to make it easier for me to then put some I guess storage units, well, maybe not storage units, but it's, I guess tool hanging systems, so I can put some up on the board and have all my tools. The only thing that's left for this bench top is to make those shelves. So actually cut out the board that will slide in there, and also in those two slots, plus on the bottom there. All those shelves though, we'll do those last. Once the bench is actually in place, so not to add weight to the actual moving, and obviously once all the bench top is cleaned up, I still need to cut this bit off. So as you can see, the bench top finishes here. I still need to cut this off and then weld it up like so here. So that's going to be the next thing I'll do. Oh, actually, sorry, maybe I'll clean up the bench top first, and then we'll do that and weld that in. I've been to the shop, got some higher degradation paper. It's a 40, 80 and a 60. Got a sander here, so let's continue on sanding this bench top. Hopefully get it looking good. what I might do is just get the vacuum cleaner out and just vacuum all this crap up that's on here before we get started. Alright, I've finished sanding the bench top. As you can see, it came out quite well. There's still some rust left over on there. I never intended this bench to be perfect. I bought it second hand. This table does have history. I want to retain some of that history. I think that's what makes this table all that much more special now that it's been cleaned up and I'm able to sort of give it a second lease of life. I've also cleaned up the rear. I put some rust inhibitor on this. Make sure that's all protected, and I might actually just give it a lick of paint. The rear we're not going to see anyway, so that's okay. Let me know if you think maybe I should paint the front too. This definitely I want to leave raw. Maybe I should paint this, not quite sure. Or maybe just leave it as is. I've given the table a vacuum, just make sure I get rid of all the other, I guess, bits and pieces, the dirt that's still on there. And this is a rust inhibitor, a rust remover, whatever you want to call it. It converts the rust, plus it prevents the rust from coming back. You apply it and you leave it on there. You don't wash it off, or you don't do anything with this. You just basically let it dry. As you can see, I've cut this piece off, which reminds me, I actually got to also do this. So I've cut this piece off here because, like I said, it's going to go in that corner right there. So I want to put this piece, well, this piece back like so. Basically, just close it off. Let me maybe just clean this up. I'll clean this off camera, and then we'll go and put that rust inhibitor on. Okay, so we've put that rust inhibitor, rust remover on there, and this is the effect. As you can see, some of this stuff is turned white. Not quite sure this is the effect I was after, but what I'll do, I'll let this dry until tomorrow. Let's see what happens, and if required, then what I'll do, I'll give this a sand through, and I think it should be fine then. I think there's some spots here, maybe I didn't put enough on. The rust is still on there, or maybe it just hasn't dried or hasn't reacted. No, the bench top has actually come out really, really well, I believe. Let me know in the comments what you think. And now let's leave this till tomorrow, let it dry. I'll come back and we'll get this finished. Well, one thing I did forget to mention, this stuff smells terrible. I have no idea, I can't compare it to any smell, but it stinks. It really, really stinks. So if you are going to use this stuff, it would be wise to get yourself prepared with a mask. Alright guys, it is a few days later. I've come back to have a look at the result of our bench. Take a look. So as you can see, that rust remover has a rust converter, rust remover, whatever you want to call it, did its job and converted the table white. It's actually kind of cool effect, I must admit, but certainly not the one I was after. So what I'm going to do now is grab the orbital sander once again and start sanding this white stuff off this table. Wow, take a look at this, guys. That is smooth. Wow. Now this is the effect I was actually after. That came out brilliant. Now I'm not quite sure if I actually gave myself some additional work with that rust inhibitor. Obviously I needed to resand the whole table once again. So apologies for all of you that think, well, this episode is just full of sanding. I think it is. I think it is quite a fair bit of sanding in here. Anyway, I like to think that rust inhibitor actually penetrates the steel somewhat, a little bit deeper than just the surface. And now the bench will be protected. But in reality, I don't know if that's the truth or not. Either way, the table came out looking fantastic. I'm really digging this finish. Some of these deeper scratches still have that white rust inhibitor in there. That's okay. I've just added my piece to the history of this workbench. Right, now that the workbench is pretty much ready, what I need to do is actually prepare the space for it to go into. Now, the plan is to use these particle boards and put them up against this wall, and then on top of those particle boards I'll put that OSB board on and leave that finish as is. So maybe I'll varnish it, but I'll leave it raw. Now one thing I guess I'm concerned about though is these particle boards. They tend to soak up the water or moisture, and as they do, they expand. So what I thought of is I've got some of these stuff that are left over from the reno that I've been doing at the workshop, from the bathroom. So this is actually liquid foil. What it actually does is you paint it on. It's pretty much like a very, very thick paint. You paint it on, and as it dries, it creates this moisture barrier. You tend to use it for showers and things like that. So I've tested on one board here, and this is the result. So essentially this would go against the wall here. So obviously I'll flip this around, secure it to the wall, and then on top of that the OSB boards would go on. So that's the plan. So what I need to do now is get another 7 of these boards out, and do the same as I've done here, and get them prepared. So make sure they're dry before we put them up against the wall. Now, next thing I wanted to do as well is to actually paint these walls. Using a facade paint. The finish here is just a rendered finish, a rendered cement finish. So what I'm thinking is I'll do a facade paint, which I've already got. I've got some around here somewhere. And use a electric spray gun to spray these walls before I start putting these boards and the OSB boards on. So that's the plan. And then once that's done, I want to put a plasterboard ceiling in here. Let me know what your thoughts are, if my plan is a good one, or if you believe it's actually set to fail. You'll save me a lot of work if you tell me. Leave it in the comment section down below. Alright, I'll go get some of these additional boards, and we'll start doing it one by one and start stacking them up against the wall there. Alright, I've done the painting. That's pretty much dry. This stuff actually, this Mape gum dries quite quick, I must admit. Unfortunately, I actually ran out. So this board I haven't painted to the end, and there's another one that's here that I haven't done. So I need to come up with something else. This stuff is really expensive, and I'm not going to buy anymore. I've used this stuff because I had it left over from the bathroom build. Okay. Anyway, so for the ones I have painted, what I'm going to start doing is actually putting these on the wall. So what I'll be doing is just getting these aligned. Going to sand these dino bolts, or what do you want to call them, to fix these just loosely to the wall, to make sure they don't fall off. I'm leaving space on the ends. First of all, obviously they don't actually quite fit, but that's okay, because I want space to run the cables behind the OSB board that I've got there. So I'll run these through these channels. I'll run the cables down these channels, and I'll also leave a gap. I'll put another one of these boards, and I'll run a small gap in between there as well. I know we'll be able to run the electrical cable in there, thus being able to hide all the cables. And I've got some of these double wall power points, which are pretty much installed everywhere over there. So I'll actually be installing the same ones in this workshop. I've only got, drop that. I've only got 3 left, so I'll need to buy some more, because I actually want quite a few power outlets here. Okay, so let me put you once again on time lapse, and let's maybe knock this wall out. Alright, so first, I guess, piece of the wall is done. I've mounted the particle board, and obviously on top of this we'll now mount the OSB boards that are sitting over there. I've left a channel here for the cable. It's 3 times 1.5 millimeter. That's ample enough for the sockets here, and so we have obviously a channel here. I'll run the cables down here. Once again, the OSB board will come all the way, will be sitting flush with this. So tomorrow I'll come back and do the other side, and then once that's done, we should be able to start screwing the... Actually no, once that's done, we've got to paint the walls. So I don't want to paint the walls with the OSB boards in place. I want to paint them before, so they'll be nice and clean. There's no paint overspray that's going to go on them. So guys, we'll end this on this note, this episode of the Forward Builds workshop build. I will continue on with this tomorrow and get the other side done, and then obviously go ahead and complete this whole workshop as you see here. If you are enjoying this and you're finding it useful, please leave me a comment, leave me a like. It's going to really help me out and help the channel out. I really want the channel to grow. Subscribe if you like it, if you like the content. Subscribe. You won't then miss any of the upcoming episodes as I go through rebuilding this whole workshop, and it is going to be an awesome man cave. So guys, I'll see you next episode. Peace.